Hi, everybody. This is Pastor Tom. I'm coming back right on again because I didn't really get done with my message. This will be our fourth installment in, how to have a supernatural church and ministry. The first two we talked about praying in the Spirit, a boatload of prayer, and reasons why that is important. Then in the last one, I talked about how you can get people's hearts right by praying in the Spirit. Paul did it. He travailed in birth till Christ was formed within them again. We talked about that. So if you haven't heard that, go back and listen to that before we go into this one. And I began to talk about how we started having miracles. I thought everybody was having miracles, but they weren't. And so I started teaching my friends this and going out on the road and teaching these things. So we started having a steady flow of miracles. Now I'm going to talk about finances for a minute because this is an issue in every church if you're starting a church, finances. And I'm here to tell you, man, when I first started the church in Reno, Nevada, my first church, still, and I had to work a little bit at first. We cleaned daycare center and things like that, and I was working, but then not too far into it, the Lord said, "I want you to go full time." Now, what did that mean? It meant that I was making $1,000 a week before ministry, but the Lord said, "I want you to start out right now. Take $250 salary." So we didn't. I don't even know if we had a board at that time yet, but I started out at $250 a week, which is pitiful today, but back then it wasn't much either. It certainly wasn't enough to really, make a living or whatever. But I took the step of faith. We did not have the congregation big enough to do that. We had just got a building we were having to pay for. Our expenses were higher than that was going. This was going to take us above our budget. I never really had too much of a budget in my life, but God said to do it, so I did it, and so the money started coming in. Now, then we went. So it was $250 up from that point on in my life. That's way back in 1990 when that started, and I could go back further than that and talk about finances all day long. But God has blessed us financially, supernaturally sustained us, and continues to do it today. Now, this is going to, I hope you understand I'm not trying to brag. That bragging for me and all that kind of stuff is I don't even care about any of that. I don't do it. I don't want to do it. I'm giving you a testimony. This is honest. This is open. I just want you to know what happened. When it came to finances, we began to see a lot of things. Number one, I can honestly say, well, when we went to rent churches or try to rent a building, I ran into something, and that was this. We don't rent to churches because they don't pay their bills. Last time I did that, the guy was there for 3 months and he left. They promise, but they don't deliver. Christians don't deliver. And that hurt me. That was horrible. And finally I got a building. We started operating in this building. But listen to this. When we did that, from that point till today, I never missed any kind of payment on a bill in our ministry. Not one time. Never been behind. Never. We finish at the end of the year in the black. Every single year I've ever been in ministry. Never in the red. All right? I've never missed a paycheck for me or any of my employees. Ever. So far. Up to this point. And I don't expect to do that. We have money in the bank, quite frankly. And so, what seemed like impossible began to happen. And here's why. Because we were praying in the Spirit and getting our people's hearts right, teaching them to pray in the Spirit and stay in that way. 95% of the people who attend my church back then tithed and gave offerings. 95%. We have about the same now. The only difference about that is sometimes when people first get there, they don't understand that. They kick in later when they get the understanding of it. So that does happen. But I can tell you that I'm just going to put it this way: 95% of our members tithe and give offerings. We just haven't had hardly anybody who didn't. And so we're able to operate at a higher level. I know people who have 350 people in their church and they can't afford a salary. They can't take care of the preacher. And this is not just a few. This is a lot of them. Well, we had 40 people in my church. Okay? And we were doing things at the rate of about a church of 350 people financially. All right? I didn't take the money and spend it on me and all that. We had bills and expenses. We traveled all the time. We worked hard, and just like you do, but the money was coming in. Now, here's the thing that was really miraculous about it. First time I found out about how this works, I went to praying because the Lord told me to go on television. Now, we have about 40, 50 people in our congregation at that time, and he wanted me to go on television. And at first I thought, well, okay, we go on this public access deal. It doesn't cost you any money. That's not what he said to me. He said, I want you to go on regular television. Now, I knew instinctively that that was going to be very expensive. I had no idea how expensive it was. It's much more expensive back then than it is today. Okay? I just went on television again. It's more of a internet thing. But even regular television, you can buy it a lot less expensive than you used to. It was really bad. Christian television was very expensive. But he said this to me: don't go on Christian television. I want you to buy time on Fox. I want you to buy time on whatever it was, or whatever the stations were. Secular stations, not Christian stations. Now, I'm not opposed to anybody doing that. This is what he told me. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And so I went to look at how much it was going to be, and I about passed out because it was hundreds. It was so far out there that, I just thought, my God, there's no way we can do this. This is, we have to pay our bills. This would be way above all that. It blew your budget right out not even in the budget, not even close. And so what did I do? I know the Lord had spoken to me. You're right. What did I do? I went to praying. I think I prayed 7 hours a day and fasted a lot for about 3 months, I would say. I went to the board and told them what the Lord said to me and that we were going to do this. And they all kind of, they had learned up to that time with me. They said, well, whatever he says, we're going to follow him and do it. They just kind of shook their head. They had the same reaction I did. It's like, it's impossible. But with God, all things are possible. And, if we can believe all things are possible. I was not believing God for that. That was way above my faith. So you got to know where your faith's at. Because if you don't, you're going to go out and do something dumb. You're going to rent a building that's too big for you to handle. People just do it all the time. I've never done any of that kind of stuff. I just never have. And I wasn't going to start now. I'm not going to go get myself involved in something that we couldn't do. So I went to praying about it. Because I know there's a difference. Now listen very carefully. There's a difference between regular faith, where we're at in our own particular faith life, and supernatural faith, the gift of special faith. I knew that. And I knew that I needed to get to that special faith part before I could ever move on this. And so I prayed for about 7 hours a day. I also did quite a bit of fasting. I did it for about 3 or 4 months. I can't remember exactly. Every day. And basically what I was praying about was this: every time that I have any kind of thing that God is telling me to do, this is what I do. Every time. I don't move on things without two things happening. Number one, I never move on anything until I know that inside I have enough faith to do it right. And then it'll sustain. Secondarily, I always make sure I check with my wife on everything and we're in agreement. Marriages will not work if... Listen, guys. Listen to me very carefully. Talk to your wife about things. Your wife has wisdom that you don't have. You have wisdom that she doesn't have. both of you together are tremendously powerful. So I never did anything without talking to Stella about it. And she got a witness on it. She knew it was okay. Then I went for it. And somehow, some way, she said, I think you can do this. I don't know what it is. I just feel like, and I said, well, I can't right now. I can't. I don't have faith for this. I can't even start on this project. I just didn't have it. And so I went to praying. But I came to the point of where all of a sudden God dropped that gift of special faith in me, supernatural faith, and now I just went out and I told people we're gonna raise some money if you guys like to give to this. This is what we're doing, and it's going to cost. I found out how much it was going to cost. I didn't have a camera, didn't buy cameras or any of that. I went down and I rented a studio where they did this program called the 7th Hour or 11th Hour, I think it was. And I was on that program quite a bit, so I knew about the studio, the people that worked there. They were my friends. I knew I could. I just basically wanted to rent their studio, and I found out how much it was going to be, and that was outrageous. And then I found out how much the programs were going to cost when we did them and put them on the Fox and it was totally out there. There's just no way, and in the natural. But I got to the point. When I got to that point, I'm here to tell you, one day I knew we had it. I had it. I don't know exactly how that even expressed that. I knew inside I had that. And we went to a service, and I had a guest preacher there, and the Lord spoke to me. I'm going to do something special for you today before the service. I thought, well, we're going to have a really great service. My pastor friend came, and he did good. It was a good service, but it wasn't anything real special. But I'm sitting there going, I wonder if I missed God but when they counted the offering, my guy who was my head deacon in Reno, he was a police officer, and this guy had no emotions about him. I mean, it was like the guys who stood around out there in London, with or guarding the palace. He was like that. He was just really like that. And so even get him crack a smile was difficult. But anyway, he comes out of the back room counting that money. They were counting that money back in the back room, and his face was red. I'm talking about red. Like I was concerned about him at first. And he said, "You're not going to." He couldn't even get the words out. We had enough money come in one offering to pay for all of the programs, the taping of the programs, and all of the airtime for a year in advance. Now, maybe you didn't hear me. I'll go back and say it again. In one offering, we had enough money come in to pay for the entire studio time, recording of the things, and the airtime with for a year in advance. And I did it. And we never, ever had the television ministry in our budget. After that, it supernaturally sustained itself. Did the same thing with Pakistan up here when we're doing the Crusades. It sustains itself. You don't get those kind of miracles by just confessing the word. I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me. You get those kind of miracles, you get that kind of thing by praying much in the Spirit. Confessing the word is important. I didn't say it wasn't, okay? But that's how that works. And when I saw that, it did. We had, listen, we were in a fellowship called International ICFM, International Convention of Faith Ministries, and another one called I don't know, it's Faith something or the other. I was in two of these fellowships, sometimes at the same time. We were responsible to have meetings, and in the meetings we would have people come in and everybody pay their own way, and I did it too. We would pay our own way. We'd go there, get a motel room. We would, speak during the day in these sessions they'd have all day long, and then at night the guest speaker or the predominant speaker would speak, and we would give offering, and he would get the offerings, or her, whoever it was. And that's the way it worked. When you joined up for it, that's the way it worked. We all did it, and I have no problem with that. But the Lord began to tell me, okay, I want you to bring in everybody. We bring them all in, pay for their motel rooms, feed them, and give them a little honorarium. And that's what we did. And when I went to my board, I said, oh, I want to do it this way. They said, well, because of money, it was a lot of money to do that, and nobody else was doing it. I said, well, I want to do it. I want to set an example here of what you can do. And they were kind of mad at me for even doing that, because but I didn't care. I said, I'm going to do it this way. This is what the Lord's telling me to do. See, so if you want to kick me out of the fellowship or whatever for this, go ahead. They didn't, but we had. I would have the budget of what it was going to cost to do this meeting and do all those things. Normally, within a week or two, I'd have the money for it. So the budget was paid before we ever got to the meetings, if you follow what I'm saying. That's just the way it worked. It was a supernatural flow of finances in our lives. Just a supernatural. And when I left, as an example, I will give you this. The Lord said to me, I want you to leave, give your church to somebody else, and I've got something else for you. I want you to go out on the road. So we did that for a while. We went out on the road. I love going out on the road. I would have much rather been a traveling minister than a pastor at that time. Now I'd much rather be a pastor than a traveling minister, because I've done both. And traveling can be very difficult, especially nowadays with all the situations people are facing. But anyway, make a long story short, we went out for a couple of years, very successful at that. Never missed a bill, never missed a payment. Then all of a sudden the finances dried up. I mean, now we never missed anything, but they dried up. And I went to the Lord over it. I said, now, Lord, what's going on here? Is something not right? So you know what I did? I went to praying long hours. While I was praying long hours, we had got something called a computer. This is back a while ago. Compaq computer is the name of it. Compaq Cesario or something. I don't remember exactly. Everybody had one of those at one time, it seemed like. So on the computer, they have these websites. I didn't know much about it. I was trying to learn how to use it. They had websites. And there was one website that had ministries were looking for preachers, or ministries looking for, wanted a pastor or something like that. And I said, well, faith without works won't work, so I'm going to check this out. So I put an ad on there. And I was putting ads on and looking around for people that were looking for preachers. And I sent a lot of tapes out and different things, to see if maybe God wanted me to take over a church. Because I had established churches, several of them, but I'd never really taken over one to pastor, and I thought that would be a different thing. It's a lot harder, by the way, in my opinion, but anyway, I have done that. And so we went along for a while doing that, putting that out there, and we were struggling a little bit financially because we never missed any payments or anything, but the money just wasn't coming in, and it was very apparent that something was happening. So a little group of people up there in Door County wrote me back and said, we would like to have somebody come establish a church up here. And I said, okay. I said, I was not planning on establishing the church. That was not even in my mind at the time. I said, I'm going to come up. It was around Easter time. I said, why don't I come up? If you guys will pay, give me a plane ticket. I'll come out there with me and my wife. We'll meet you guys. We'll preach for you, and we'll look it over and see if I can't get somebody in there, because I did have people that we could put into the ministry at that time. And I was thinking this was like a fishing village up Eskimos or something up in the middle of Lake Michigan. I didn't know what to think. So I started checking it out, and I looked on the computer about this place, Door County. I thought, oh my God, this is a beautiful place. Look at this. And I see, they had all kinds of information about Door County. So anyway, I called them. I said, let's set up a meeting, and they did. And so we flew out there, and when we were there, my wife and I were ministering. The Lord said to me, I want you to come here. I want you to start a church. I want you to be in this area. And you tell them that night. So I got up and told them. They all stood up and they gave me a standing ovation. Praise God, we're going to have a pastor. There was about 15 people there that brought us in. They were pretty good people, and there's some of them that turned out not to be so good. But the point I'm trying to make is we got to start. Well, I sent my wife back to Reno, Fernley actually, to sell our house, put it up for sale, do some things that needed to be done, and I started immediately. They just gave me this this place to rent that was an older house, great house. I loved it. It was older, kind of out in the woods a little bit, really cool. And but they didn't give me much. There wasn't a TV in there. All I had was a radio, and but anyway, that's how we started. We started having meetings, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to go to work. This is the first thing I thought about. I'm going to have to go back to work because there's no way. I have to have a certain amount of money now to live. There's no way I can, the church could ever raise that for me with 15 people or whatever it was. So I was prepared to go to work, and I was 40 something years old at that time. So, that's not old, but it was, I knew I was going to have to go to work. I wasn't looking forward to it, secular work, but I was willing to do it. And so when I got up there and we were testing the waters, so to speak, about all this, I had a little bit of a buffer because we did have some support when we told people we were going to make this move. Some people did support us. And guess what? When I got up there, we had more money coming in with the 15 people or 20 people than we did in Reno with 200 and some people. This is a true statement. I didn't just get a salary out of it when we formed a board and everything. I got a raise. Now, there's two elements to this that I want to tell you about. Number one, when you pray in the Spirit like that, miraculous things happen, okay? Financially. It's way exceedingly abundantly above all that you're able to ask or think. Number two, Stella and I always tithed and gave offerings. We were tithers and givers. We always were. Therefore, we had that going for us. And the Bible has a lot of things to say about that, promises that come into pass when you're preaching the gospel. Man, when you're out there doing the word of God and preaching the gospel, I'm telling you, God will support it, Hallelujah. And he did. So my experience there, in this whole thing has been that. Miraculous event after miraculous event, financially, in our marriage, in our life, just one thing after another has been tremendously amazing what God has done in our lives. When we went out on the road, I started going out on the road all the time. That's not easy to do. So we had the church, and we would travel also, which is not easy to do. Not everybody's supposed to do that. And most people would fail at it, and they shouldn't do it. Most pastors should stay where they're at most of the time. For me, I always had to travel too, and that was just the way God used me. So I had the church and traveling, and it seemed to always work really well for me. I never had any problems with it. I don't know if the people much liked it, but I had to do it, and I did it. And when I did it, when I would go out, I always took my wife with me, so that was more expenses, and always, because I didn't want to be going out there without my wife. That's where you get into trouble. Some of you are going, oh yeah, that's right. You get out there, you don't know what's going to happen. You're out there all alone, and you're vulnerable and things, and I didn't want that to happen. So she's there. She's there. So you understand what I'm saying. So anyway, when we went out, the Lord spoke to me and said, when you go out, I want you to rest a day or two. Take a couple days after the meeting's over, whatever area you're in, and go do something fun and relax. So we made we like zoos, not anymore, but I did back then. We like zoos. I've been to every zoo in every city that we went to, and other things. We would take some time for us. God paid for it. He flipped the tab for that, and we never ever really lacked anything for that, because God will do that for you when you're willing to go. if he tells you to go. And it was amazing. We had so much fun. We had great meetings, so much great ministry over the years, going to small places where most people did not go or would not go. And we would go into these small little places. Some of them were home churches, some of them were just small things. And I mean, God would bless us financially. Where the money came from, sometimes I'm always amazed by that. Just tremendous. I remember one time I went out to preach, and I don't know where I was, in California somewhere, and we had a friend of ours come cover the service from Sacramento. Really great guy, and he was a really nice man. So he took the service, and he got a well of an offering, a great offering from our congregation. They blessed him. But while he was there, he said, you know what? I feel impressed to bless your pastor. Now, there's a lot of money we're talking about here. So they did that too. And when we came back home, we had a check, a big check, sitting on our desk, because when we had went out there. Now, listen, I remember where it was. It was Gurneyville, California, like the homosexual capital of the world there. And there's a little church there that the little pastor, me and him had a relationship. I used to go preach for him on the Indian reservations first, and he just loved our ministry. I was able to help him and his family a lot. And then when he moved, he went to Gurneyville. Now, this was a denominational church, okay? And they did not know how to give. I'm just going to be honest about it. They knew, they would give you a couple $100 or something and think they were doing great, or whatever it was. So we knew that was a kind of a mission trip, is what I'm saying. And that's how I looked at it. It was a mission trip. We're going to have to pay for everything, and if we got any money from them, we let them give an offering, because you're supposed to do that, and it's good for them to do that. But they were cheap and stingy. It's a denomination, didn't know how to give. And so there wasn't any money left over, which is fine. We could pay for that through the ministry. But when we got home, there was a huge check waiting for us. And that was just God's way of saying, you know what, you do what I tell you to do, great things are going to happen. I'm going to tell you one more story, and this is it. One day, the Lord spoke to me and said, I want you to drive out to California for your pastor's camp meeting. I don't normally drive out there to do this, but I did. This is the middle of winter. In March up here, you got to watch out for the weather, and across the nation. I said, well, the only way I'm going to be able to do that safely is to go down south, drive way down south, and then cut across the country. And the Lord said, go do that. Go down south. We went way down south, and then we cut across. And, the weather can be rough at that time, but it's not so much snow. It could be an ice storm, but it's mostly, thunderstorms and tornadoes that you're dealing with once you get down south. So the Lord said to me, I want you to do anything. I don't want you to talk. I want you instead to talk, except when you have dinner, or before you go to bed. When you're in that car, I want you driving, and I want you praying in the tongues, both of you, all the way out there and all the way back. And I'm here to tell you, we started praying in tongues, and we did it all the way out there and all the way back. And you know what? Some unusual things happened. I could tell you stories. I'm not going to tell you right now. But you know what happened with that? Later on, a couple years later, I began to get invitations from churches on that route. In other words, God took our prayers as we were going through there and used them to establish relationships with people, pastors, and so on, so that we could go preach down there all the way across and back. Hallelujah. That's the way that worked. And it worked because we were willing to do it. This is what prayer in the Spirit can do for anybody who wants to do it, to have a supernatural, powerful, sustaining God ministry. I love you so much. I appreciate you. If you like this video, please share it. especially with young preachers that are zealous about getting into ministry. This will really help them. These teachings will help them. Until next time, this is Pastor Tom. God bless you.